Aries is amped this month. You've got a full moon in your sign. Obviously, that happens just once a year, so that's a big event. Adding to those big storylines that we'll talk about that can come from that full moon, which is towards the end of the month, we've got a massive amount of other energy in Aries, and we'll talk about all that, plus other aspects of the astrological weather of September and beyond that you need to know to make the most of it. Hi, I'm Annie Botticelli. Welcome to my deep dive into the Aries September and beyond 2026 horoscope. I have Aries rising with you, all who have the rising, but in essence, the Aries energy is the Aries energy regardless of where it's placed. So I am going through whatever this is with all of you, and we do have a lot to celebrate and definitely some things to look out for. In the days around September 26th, even though this is at the end of the month, I'm starting with it first because it is a major highlight. We've got a 3-degree full moon in Aries. Full moons bring fruition, completion, manifestation, drama, amazing events, stressful events, things coming from the unconscious out. Sometimes there can be medical symptoms or events. This is the physical body after all, and it does specifically relate to the neurological system. Headaches, vision, ears, everything in your head and brain sort of area. So you may have a breakthrough in healing one of these things, or you may have a breakthrough in understanding anything in your life, especially as it relates to your identity and how you see yourself. You can also think back 6 months to when the new moon happened in Aries, because there is something at play during that cycle. And you can think back over the last 28 days. We do move within a 28-day manifestation cycle as well. So there are different cycles and sub-cycles that are at play here, and you can kind of tune into those. But for Aries, this can definitely give you a major shift in how you see yourself. This can be a reinvention, personal reinvention period. And as I was talking about before, full moons, maybe a year process, maybe a month, maybe 6 months. It's a big deal, worth talking about for sure. It will be relevant for all Aries, but the closer you are to those early degrees, so March-born Aries, you may get an extra special intense burst from this, the closer to 3 degrees you are, but all of you are pretty close there in the March-born times. But we have to remember the long-term picture too. Neptune and Saturn recently in Aries, long-term stories. Neptune is dissolving away your capacity to be who you are not. Aries is usually pretty good at being authentic, but there are still ways that you have sacrificed yourself, not been true to yourself, or that you have evolved and not updated things in your life based on your level of evolution. Neptune is dissolving away old belief systems and ways of seeing yourself. It could even dissolve away your career if you identify as your career, or whatever role. Parents maybe seeing their kids have milestones, and there's some dissolution there with a role as a parent in certain capacities, things like that. Saturn is also asking for definition. So for the upcoming years with Saturn moving through here, you've got this quest for definition of true self. And this full moon is a touch point along that journey. Pallas Athena is there asking for you to be brave. Vesta is there asking for you to consider the question of what is your soul flame? What really makes you feel alive and excited and engaged with life, and how you can do more of that. Sometimes people will say the Aries energy is selfish, and that's certainly a part of a spectrum of manifestation that Aries can be. But to blanket that word as that's what Aries is would be missing most of what Aries is. Most of the Aries placements I know, the ambition they have, the motivation they have, winds up being for or helping other people. And yeah, we're on our own sometimes whacking through new fields to lay groundwork and being trailblazers. That happens, and that can be a very lonely process. But there is that satisfaction and fulfillment of knowing that things that you're doing are going to make it easier for other people. And you're in a very major spiritual cycle of asking, where is your spirituality at in this? For some people, this is religious. For some people, it transcends any one religion. It's just the story of your purpose and why you're here and what you're doing and what your gifts are and how you're using them. I haven't shared this in a while, but if you've listened to my work for a while, then you know. I had a very big question of this decades ago when I was drinking and I don't drink anymore. It's been a long time. But my presence was like a powder keg, and I would incite things. I still do that. We do that as Aries. But at that time, because there was destruction and downward spiraling, there was chaos around me. Fights were erupting, sometimes because of me, even though I didn't do anything. Just the energy was, catalyzing that way. And it caused some trouble for me and other people. And so I had to ask myself the question, is this what I want to do with that gift that I have to incite something, to inspire something? And you are going to be faced with the same questions. And some of this is a short-term process where you're going to answer that question this month. Some of this is part of a longer-term process where you're asking a series of questions and really diving deep into look what the answers are. You may get major recognition at this full moon. It is very, very common to have a full moon bring you into the limelight. And that can be very exciting. Also, be aware of how you use your energy at this time, because it may bring you into the limelight, and you want to make sure beforehand, if you have say in it, that this is something that you want for everybody to know, because things can certainly be revealed. Anytime we have Aries energy, we're always looking at the opposing energy, which is Libra, and we do have Venus in Libra, and Venus is starting its retrograde cycle. It's not officially retrograde until October, but every day we march on from August 31st. We're moving deeper and deeper into that retrograde cycle. And then we have the retrograde October into November, and then we have the post-transit shadow period. So for the whole rest of the year, we're basically covered in Venus retrograde. I'm going to go a lot more into this, but for our purposes now with the comparison of Aries energy, I just want to talk about the polarity here. Venus is about relationships. Venus in retrograde digs up, excavates everything that could have been a problem in your relationship space to bring it forward into more resolution. And if you are having trouble moving into the Venus retrograde, it can make it worse. Or it can make the time that you've put in, make it better. So you can get love restored to you. People in love can come back from your past. You can have the goodness in your relationship be remembered and go back to things that you and your partner did before that really worked. And you may also be considering separating from the person that you're with. Venus rules love and relationships and money and finances and design and aesthetics and self-esteem and confidence in many ways. So it covers a lot of ground. So you are in this kind of push and pull of really trying to identify what is uniquely yours when you're not giving it over to someone else, which may be satisfying to you to be in roles. You're a parent, you're a spouse, you're a child of someone, you're an employee, you're a worker, you're a business owner, whatever you are. You're those things. But there is something that's truer under it, something that drives it. And you're in a very deep questioning process that will hit some highlights with this full moon. And as the Venus retrograde cycle progresses, you're really going to be asking those very, very deep questions. The quest for a healthy balance between independence and partnership is going to be among these big things that you're looking at. Boundaries. Aries people, in general, can say no a lot easier than some other people, unless you have other aspects of your chart that shine brighter in that. But most of my friends that have Aries placements, if they don't want to do something, they say, no, I don't really want to do that. And it's a different language. People saying how they feel and saying what they want and saying what they think is its own language. And it's hard sometimes for Aries people to understand when someone like subterfuge or when someone is like thinking something and not saying it, or doing something different than they're thinking. This is not a language that Aries tends to speak. But as humans, we do sometimes fall into this whole thing of the issue with the boundaries. And this is a very big story for you. And some of it may be things you're doing to yourself, boundaries with what you eat, what you do physically. So all of that is happening. Mars is in for August and September, back into Cancer, hasn't been there for a couple of years. The last time it was there, it was a retrograde, so that was a very deep cycle back then. Mars is our ruler. We always want to track that. And Mars is moving through the sign and the house for Aries of home and family and housing and real estate. So you may get very, very obsessive about things with home and housing and family. If you are a person who is into inner work, like psychological self-development, looking for the behavioral things that are underlying the decisions that we make, This can be an amazing time to dive deeply into your ancestry and your childhood to see what kinds of things could be affecting your relationships now. And you may also be driving to do that for your family, because this is a very family focus. Ceres is here, which means you may be reaping rewards from past work and also planting harvest for what will be your next harvest, or planting seeds for what will be your next harvest. Some very exciting things that have been going on, some short term, like Hygeia moving through Leo, long term Jupiter and transiting nodes. We just had that solar eclipse, fire eclipse in August, amazing for Aries. Very exciting. We're still under the influence of that. You may still be seeing great things coming from that. You can review the August report to get the deep dive on where that's hitting for you and what that means. But I'll give you some of it here because Jupiter is affecting the same area from the middle of 2026, around July, until July 2027. We have Jupiter, who rules a fellow fire sign Sag, making a trine, the best aspect in astrology, to our Aries placements, moving forward and direct very strongly, and trying to push through our passions, our things that excite us, things involving romance and children and true love and our bucket lists and, our passion projects and things that put us into the limelight or have our stuff seen, that zest that we have of creating, that creative force. It can start with the speck of falling in love with someone over through, going into deeper levels of relationship, having a baby, raising the babies. All of that energy can be encompassed in Leo. And the same thing for creative projects, creative babies, the spark of insight, of idea, of inspiration. So we have all of that going for us right now. And Jupiter is making a beautiful, beautiful aspect with Saturn. So that self-definition process that Aries is going through is being boosted by this amazing long-term aspect with Jupiter. When outer planets get together, they usually kind of hover close together more than just a few days like we have with these short-term planets, like I'll be talking about here soon with the Virgo placements. So this is a longer term, multiple months, just like asking those questions about what is making you passionate. Have you lost your luster? What makes you shine? Are you getting enough of it? What has to happen in order for you to get it back? Is your fire being dampened? By who? Get that fixed up. Might be in your home, family, and housing. Mars is telling this story about having to get through some of that. Might be in your childhood stuff that these patterns are coming up and bringing you down. And it may just straight up be serotonin levels and something biochemical or neurochemical that may be able to be worked out with supplements or by seeing a doctor or, getting psychological aid. Saturn can be very heavy on the psyche, and Saturn moving through Aries may be a little bit depressive. It's exciting in the way that it's helping you redefine, but it's heavy, and it can make Aries, I say little, but many Aries can have started to really feel like they don't know who they are, and Neptune is casting this in as well. So if you're kind of in that and you feel lost, there may just be simply things you can do to boost your serotonin levels. I have seen so many different resources, and I'm not a doctor, I'm not diagnosing, certainly not suggesting tinkering with medication or anything like that. Those things have to be, done professionally. But there are things. Being out in nature boosts serotonin. Being around pets and animals can do that. Being around plants in your house. Exercise can do that. So if you're feeling this and you need more help than just a little boost, look for the help that can give it to you. This transit right here can actually help you get yourself back. And if you are just having a little bit of moodiness or lowness and it doesn't feel like it's something serious, look up the ways to boost these levels. This is a time where you can, find these answers. And that leads me to the next discussion of some shorter term planet transits. The Sun and Mercury, the Sun bringing highlights and focus and information, Mercury's bringing information. The Sun is bringing amplification. And then the new moon in the days around the 10th, all of this in the sign of Virgo, for Aries in the house of Virgo. This is your house of health. Okay, so you may be asking some health questions, and it may tie into this mood stuff that I was talking about. Also, pets and animals here, and your daily work, your structure, your organization, or lack thereof, Aries do tend to really want to kind of have things organized depending on what other placements you have in your chart, because we do have Virgo ruling our 6th house, which is ruled by Virgo. So kind of for us to be able to soar or push forward or trailblaze or pioneer, there are certain things we want to have intact and organized and kind of set the way they need to be. Sometimes we can be sticklers for that. So you may be going through a nice refreshment into that arena to say, hey, what's working? Great. Celebrate it with the sun. Hey, what's not working? Great. Let's see what needs to be done with the sun. And the same goes on with your health, your wellness, your supplements, your meditation, your exercise. All of this is a time to get reestablished or deeper into this. Maybe you're on too many supplements and you're making that decision. Maybe you are on not enough and you need a little more support. Our bodies don't absorb as many nutrients as they did when we were younger, when we get older. That is just a straight up truth. People can avoid that fact and say, I don't need supplements, and maybe that's true, but it just generally happens that way. Things like coenzyme Q10, again, not diagnosing or treating or prescribing, but sometimes things like that can just boost energy. I always take mine in the morning because if I take it later in the day, I have trouble sleeping. That's the only side effect I've seen from that. But of course, definitely check in to see if that's okay for you. But things like that, you may be a supplement away or a doctor visit away from not just feeling better emotionally, but having more energy levels. Saturn can depress your physical energy levels as well. And moving through your sign, if those effects are happening, these transits, including that new moon in the days around the 10th, where you can set the intentions, do the research, get the information, and take action and put plans together to be feeling really good again. If you already feel good, you may wind up feeling better. If there's a health issue to explore, you may be digging into those topics and addressing those things. From now until 2032, Aries friends are going to have a lot to say, and some of it may be surprising. With Uranus moving through the sign of Gemini and our house of Gemini, our way of expressing may be different. We may have sudden insights. We may suddenly start doing things other people are surprised about. I talked about all this with our identity piece, but this is from the communication piece. So if you want to write, if you want to speak, if you want to have prolific expression in any medium, Uranus is there helping you, and it's making great angles for your Aries placements, and it's making great angles to these Leo placements as well. I've given you some dates. We've talked about some timelines. If you want the complete report for September, go to anniehelpsyou.com right now in another browser. Click on Unleash and put your name and email address in there. Get my welcome letter. I don't send out very many newsletters, so you won't get a lot of stuff from me, but I do write my own stuff. And this particular report, when you click on the archive link in the welcome letter, look for September 2026 astrology. I spend hours writing this a month. Every month I do this. And it has the sweet and salty, I like to call the best and worst aspects, what you can do with them in case you're trying to align or understand what's going on through the month, where the roadblocks will be, where the bumps will be, where the big things, where the small things, where you can align to do some important stuff. You can see that all there. Late degree Aries friends, so birthdays like April 15th through the rest of the sign, or 23 degree Aries placements through the rest of the sign, I suggest you listen to my Taurus report as well, because your late degree friends will benefit from both readings. If you're going to one of my other reports now to watch your sun, moon, rising, one of your other placements, I'll see you there. Otherwise, I'll see you in my next report. Bye.